I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of The Jar, a sports podcast that brings you facts and opinions. You guys decide if you like it, hate it, and of course, want to steal it. We're on the NFL Week 3. Jesus Christ. Can we say dogs are barking? I mean, right now the NFL is so unpredictable. I mean, you have your favorite teams that everybody loves, but then you have those teams that's up and coming that's saying, not yet, not yet. If they're going to be good, they're going to be good through the whole season. We're just not going to lay down and just allow you guys to beat us. And then, you have the professional analysts, the podcast analysts like ourselves, and even the teams and players dictating who's going to be the champions and who's going to be in the playoffs. Not just yet. It's some very intriguing teams, some very intriguing quarterbacks that are playing. And as of right now, we better pay attention because I don't know if it's going to last that long, but it looks good right now. Man, kicking off this week, just bringing up a game that we saw. We probably all had the Houston Texans beating the Minnesota Vikings. Now tell me this, why? Why did we have the Houston Texans beating the Minnesota Vikings? Probably be because of CJ Stroud, the offensive weapons, the defensive weapons, and we decided that Sam Darnold isn't, come on now, he was a top draft pick and hasn't done anything since he's been in the NFL. And yeah, sure, he had some lucky wins, right? He beat the San Francisco 49ers last week. Of course, for some odd reason, the 49ers are owned by the Minnesota Vikings own the 49ers the past 2 years. Last year, they even beat them without Justin Jefferson. And this year, of course, they beat them last week with Justin Jefferson. And this time, they didn't have Jordan Addison, who they had last year, who was really good for them last year. It didn't go how we expected. At least not how I expected it, unless you guys can tell me that you for sure picked Minnesota to win. Now, I did hear that there were a lot of individuals that were scared of that game. For all you bettors out there, I did hear individuals that was a little nervous. Why? Because the Minnesota Vikings have been playing extremely well. Their defense has been playing extremely well, and their offense is on another level, at least right now. Now, if you guys can name the guys that are stars on their defensive front, go ahead, because the way their line was hunting CJ Stroud, it was incredible. It was incredible. I didn't expect, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I did not expect the game to go the way it went. I don't think anybody did. Pretty much for the most of the game, CJ was running. He couldn't get comfortable back there at all. The running backs, Joe Mixon was out, so they had to pretty much figure that out. And even if they had Joe Mixon, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know how much that would have made a difference. Just because the defensive line was destroying the Houston Texans offensive line. And then you go and you look on the other side. The Minnesota Vikings didn't have a problem. Sam Darnold stood back there so long he could have made some popcorn, made a mistake, went out to dinner, came back, watched a movie. He had so much time to throw the ball, it was ridiculous. And more importantly, he looked really, really good. Like, really good. Who would expect Sam Darnold to be playing as good as he playing? Right now, Sam Darnold is leading the league in touchdowns. He has 8 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Sam Darnold, a throwaway guy. And it shows you sometimes with these quarterbacks, everybody always wants to, and it's funny that a couple people have been mentioning this, you try to start these quarterbacks ahead of time and they don't always pan out. Sometimes you got to give them a little time. Sometimes they got to sit back and watch the veterans do their thing and understand the game. A lot of times the game speed just may not be good enough, or they may not be able to handle the game speed at the current time when they're in the NFL. So sometimes they need to sit back and wait. Look at Jordan Love. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Those guys didn't start their first 2 or 3 years. Look at Patrick Mahomes. This may be a situation where Sam Darnold needed to wait his turn, get on a good team, a well-balanced team, and play extremely good football. Extremely good football. If you look at the game, it was never even close. Even when, and I'm a Houston Texans fan, but But I found myself rooting for the Minnesota Vikings because I love an underdog story, number one, and they look really good on both sides. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, I forgot he was even over there, and even though he's a little longer in the tooth, he still can play great defense. So they have like all the requisite weapons to make things a little interesting for the NFC. I mean, right now they're leading their division, and honestly, I don't know how it's going to turn out. Now, they have to win their division. And honestly, with 3-0 record, they don't have to win their division. They could just beat all the teams outside of their division and make the playoffs. But I would say they're at least going to have to get 2 or 3 games in their division to even be considered for that. Now, this is me being a realist about it. You guys remember about 2 or 3 years when Arizona Cardinals started off 7-0? They looked unstoppable. Now, I'm not comparing Arizona Cardinals to the Minnesota Vikings with Kyler Murray, and they had all that talent around them at the time. AJ Green went over there. They had Murphy Bunt. They had Budda Baker. They just had, from the defense to the offense, they had weapons everywhere. And they started off 7-0. And guess what happened? They lost. For as good as they started off, reality kicked in towards the end of the season, and they started to lose. I think they won maybe 1 or 2 more games after that. So, honestly, I kind of look at the Minnesota Vikings like that. The Minnesota Vikings look really good. Don't get me wrong. They look extremely good. I mean, they're beating teams that we don't expect them to beat, and they're beating them handily. Like, it's not even looking like it's close out there. And even if it is close, it still looks like they're just a better team. I mean, literally, come on. I mean, they literally beat the Houston Texans. I mean, they beat I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it, but it wasn't even a game worth watching after maybe the second quarter, because every time you looked, it was like C.J. Stroud was on a run. They beat them 34-7. 34-7. I mean, it was. I mean, they stomped them out. So I would say this, with the way the Minnesota Vikings are playing, and I'm going to tell you this, there's a lot of injuries going on, similar to last year, not as devastating, but what I'm seeing around the NFL is those guys are not playing preseason games, and it's coming to haunt them. They're getting out there. Now, maybe they're not loose. I don't know what the case it is. Maybe their footing is not good for the turf and the grass that they're getting on because they haven't played any games, and maybe it's showing because you're seeing a lot of hamstring injuries, a lot of that's the most I've seen. A lot of foot injuries, a lot of leg injuries that are kind of nagging it or keeping them out. I mean, Christian McCaffrey hasn't even played. We didn't even know he was hurt in off season. I mean, if he was, it was undisclosed. But I mean, he has some type of lagging Achilles injury. Where did that come from? So who knows when he'll be back? Again, I mentioned Dre Greenlaw. He's out from last year. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched. San Francisco's whole team seems to be decimated. Nick Bosa may not play this upcoming week. George Kittle may not play. Deebo Samuel's not going to play. They're decimated. So injuries are starting to pile up. Again, the good thing is it's not, for the most part, they're not season ending. And maybe when week 6, week 7 hit, we'll get to see the best football, which we usually do anyway. But people will be coming off injury reserve, and they'll be more than likely healthy, and they'll be more revitalized because they won't have such wear and tear on them at the beginning of the season. So it could be a good thing for some teams, especially San Francisco, because it's looking like they may not even make the playoffs, for Christ's sake. And to speak of San Francisco, they had a game against the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams are banged up. They don't have neither one of their primary receivers, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and they were down 10 points to the San Francisco 49ers, and they squeezed out a victory 24-27. Why? Because they play the San Francisco 49ers in their division hard all the time. Why? Because Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's good, and he actually played good. It's been their defense that's been letting them down. I mean, it is what it is. But that's how it goes when those two teams play. So I'm not surprised. Just a little surprised that even though San Francisco is banged up, they still have Ayuk, who hasn't played like anything since he's got the contract. And of course, I want him to get paid. But Matthew Stafford pretty much was throwing to anybody out there. And I mean, I'll say this though, their running back Kyron Williams is a demon. 3 touchdowns. So he pretty much did what he wanted to do out there, and that made them still be relevant in that game. And honestly, that's why they won that game. So I don't know what's going to happen with San Francisco. They better get healthy soon because it ain't looking good. Or Brandon Ayuk better wake up and realize that the season has started and he's got paid. So it's time to do your thing because they look bad, real bad. Another game of the week was the Cowboys versus the Dallas Cowboys. I'll say it clearly for all the Dallas lovers. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Baltimore Ravens. That game, I'm not too certain on how I felt about that game. I thought Dallas would make it a game. A little bit of me actually thought Dallas might even win the game. But, of course, we should have known it. They're not who they say they are. They're not a real team. Like the Dallas Cowboys, they look good, they look talented, they look fast. But honestly, they just seem a little soft. I mean, it is what it is. Anytime they play against a team that can punch them in the mouth, they just aren't successful. Now, sometime in the season, they do look good against certain teams. But I really should have known that they would get ran over. I mean, Derrick Henry had a coming out party against them. A guy that actually wanted to go to Dallas, from what I'm understanding, was training in the offseason in Dallas. Yet they supposedly didn't have the money to pay him. Didn't have the money to pay Derrick Henry. And you have who at the running back right now? Ezekiel Elliott is on there because he was easy to pay. And that's it. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, I don't know. I honestly, it didn't look good. I mean, and, the Michael Parsons thing. Let me get to that. I like Michael Parsons. I'm not the biggest fan, like a lot of people, especially calling him the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. I mean, let's stop it. Like, for real, let's stop it. I mean, you're going really far to say he's as good as Lawrence Taylor when he's not even close to people like, anybody. Anybody that you can think of that's a great linebacker that hunts the pass rush, that hunts the quarterback. I mean, I don't know. Not saying he isn't great, but the reason why I say not better than anybody, because you have to sustain that. I don't believe in 1 or 2 years in any sport. Can you sustain that over a period of time? Not 2 or 3 seasons, 5, 6, and 7 seasons when you aren't as fast. You can still be physical, but it's more than just your speed. Now it's your strength. Now it's your smartness. That's when you separate yourself from the other guys. And he's still young and agile and fast and quick and strong, but what is he showing? What has he done for him to get all this publicity that he's getting? Oh, because he's in Dallas. And more importantly, I'm a fan of his. Don't get it twisted. But to lose a game and then you're going to be on your podcast, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to say, "You're not serious. You care more about your podcast than you care about playing." Now, that may not be necessarily true. Honestly, I don't think it's true. But from the outside looking in, it's a bad look because you lose, and you lose in a fashion that just looks terrible. Then you come on your podcast and 1 or 2 days later try to critique other teams, including your team. It's just not a good look because you can say the wrong thing on the podcast about your team. You can say the wrong thing about another team that you could possibly play against. Anything. But it all looks as if that's the most important thing. I mean, now if they were winning, people probably wouldn't say that. And some still would. If they were winning and he was on a high horse, disrespecting other teams or saying one player is not good, this player is not good, that's possibly so. But honestly, it just is a bad look because they're steady losing. I mean, again, with this second of Lawrence Taylor talk, I mean, he's better than Von Miller? I don't think so. And Von Miller's not Lawrence Taylor. So I just think we need to slow down with that talk. Dallas needs to figure it out because they don't look good on any side of the ball. Now, it's early. It's early in the season. This is week 3. They definitely have time. And they played the Baltimore Ravens, who was thirsty for a win because they hadn't won. They were 0-2, so they needed a win more than Dallas. But it's the way that they did it. Lamar and Derrick Henry ran over them. ran over them. It's like Lamar didn't even have to throw. It's like he came out doing whatever he wanted to do. And unfortunately, Dallas couldn't do anything about it on the offensive end and especially on the defensive end. So I would say this. As a fan of the game, not a Dallas fan, somewhat of a Baltimore fan, it's week 3. I wouldn't panic if I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I would be worried the fact that they can't run the ball. And because they can't run the ball, they're predictable on offense. And more importantly, that their defense, as fast as they are, they just don't have enough meat on the bone to sustain a beating from an offensive line that can pretty much push them back. So all the pass rushing, it gets nullified because they just don't have the men in there that can actually push people around and have the girth to withstand those blows that those offensive linemen are doing to them. It just doesn't look good. But again, it's week 3, so we'll see how that plays out. Now to the Monday slate, and did we have a game that we thought would be good? And we had a game that we thought would be horrible, and it ended up being the total opposite of what we thought. The total, complete opposite. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Buffalo Bills, and the Jacksonville Jaguars seems to always play good against the Buffalo Bills. So we expected that game to be extremely good. A lot of people picked the Jacksonville Jaguars to win because they always play hard and they have beaten Buffalo before. So for you bettors out there, the spread was only 5.5 points. It went down to 5 solid points. Then it went down to 4.5. Then it jumped back up to 5. So, and that's a plus for Jacksonville. So a lot of people were assuming that the game was not only going to be close, that the Jacksonville Jaguars could have pulled that game off. Boy, was we wrong. I'm going to say this. Josh Allen. Look, I know a lot of people, don't like him. It's like you like him or you don't. And he has been a turnover machine for the most part of his career. I don't know what's going on this year, but he looks like either he's growing, something's changing because he looks like a different player. Now, I'm going to say this, just like I said with the other games, it's week 3. I don't like to get too overly excited, but you have to call out what you see and recognize what's in front of you. And Josh Allen looks amazing. He looks amazing. He right now is behind Sam Darnold in touchdowns. Sam Darnold has 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Josh Allen has 7 touchdowns. And dare I say it, 0 interceptions for Josh Allen, the turnover king. He has 0 interceptions. He is playing probably the best ball within these 3 weeks that he's played. One, because he's not forcing anything. He's just picking his spots. And it's funny I said that because listen to this interview he had after the game, his post-game interview.
That's the beauty of it. When guys get to buy into this and really understand, like, I may not get the ball 4 or 5 times thrown to me a game, but the 1 or 2 times I do, I'm going to have opportunities to be in the end zone. And, it's a fun and wonderful thing when you got a bunch of guys that don't care about the stats, they don't care about the touchdowns. And again, I think throughout practice, we've just had this mindset of like, hey, let's just do things the right way and find ways to win football games. That's what we're doing right now.
In that post-game interview, he basically is saying, as long as we don't have a guy that's greedy for the ball or team players that's greedy for the ball, I'm able to just distribute it out. We're good. Now, for the most part, everybody's like, sounds like he's talking about Stephon Diggs because we all know how Stephon Diggs can be. He whiny, complains a lot. Right now, it looks like they made the best decision by letting Stephon Diggs go. And Houston is the one that's struggling now that they have Stephon Diggs. Regardless of their record, they don't look good on offense at all. And Buffalo looks amazing on offense without him. And if you want to go a step further, it's a good thing Minnesota let him go because they probably wouldn't have got Justin Jefferson. I know there's pushing it too far. But I do not like to say a person is like a bad luck charm. But right now, the way things are panning out, every team that doesn't have Stephon Diggs looks really good. Again, this is week 3. Again, we do expect the Houston Texans to be really good. Right now, Buffalo is really good. Josh Allen looks really good. Him and Sam Darnold are, to me, top in MVP race right now. Only in week 3, don't get me wrong, but you have to call what you're seeing right now. Those are the two, and you're probably going to put Josh Allen at the top because his no-name receivers are doing their job. His decimated defense, where everybody's been traded or hurt or gone, is doing their job. And more importantly, he hasn't thrown the ball away. That is the most important part because we know Josh Allen is good for that. So, I'll say this. I'll hold my breath and see how it turns out the rest of the year because I do believe Josh likes to take chances and I do believe he's comfortable with what he's doing. Let's see if he can sustain that. Let's see if he's comfortable with just taking the open man, just the check down because he has a lot of guys that can really generate yak. Yak meaning yards after the catch. And Shakur and James Cook, the running back, and then you have the Keon Coleman kid, you have the Dawson Knox. You have guys over there that don't need to get 20, 30-yard bombs. You have guys that can take 5 a slant route and get 5 or 10 yards or whatever the case may be. You don't need guys to be heroes is what I'm saying. And he pretty much was saying that in the post-conference, in the post-game interview. And maybe that's the thing that he needs to realize. Be Josh Allen, the superhero at times. Be Clark Kent most of the time. Because his upside is so valuable that when he needs to be that guy, he really can. But when he overdoes it trying to be that guy, that's when things get bad. So right now, Josh Allen, you look good, man. Keep up the good work. I mean, they pretty much destroyed Jacksonville. And I mean, it wasn't even close. Kudos to Damar Hamlin. He caught his first interception, and we all know what happened to him. He pretty much, I don't even like to say what happened to him on the field, but we know what happened. But he got his first interception of his career. Trevor Lawrence. They were saying you the second coming, golden child. You don't look like anything right now, man. You haven't looked great, really. You had some moments in the season. I think everybody always goes back to that time that you guys were down against the Chargers in the playoffs and you won, but that's it. You got to update your resume. That's what I learned. That's what I see in any sport. Update your resume. And for the most part, you aren't that guy. Not right now. You're good, but you're not great. And I think people were assuming or wanted you to be great, but you're not. You guys scored 10 points. 10. And a lot of the passes look terrible. Overthrows, you look indecisive. You just don't look comfortable. And then they'll try to blame it on the coach. A coach who won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. That's what they'll do. Because they paid this quarterback to be a superstar leading quarterback. And he's not. At least right now he's not. So it's sad that they could possibly fire their coach. I mean, I've just heard that they're actually keeping an eye out for possibly getting Bill Belichick. So already they're talking about firing their coach. They're talking about firing their coach because Trevor Lawrence is the one that's actually looking pretty bad. It's terrible. I hate it when these coaches go through these things where they are pretty much getting everything put on them when the players aren't playing up to standards. And Trevor Lawrence hasn't been. So at some point we got to start blaming the quarterback, not the coach, especially in this situation because Trevor Lawrence does not look good. Not at all. So, like I said, the game wasn't close, 10-47. Good job, Buffalo. Jacksonville, figure it out or figure out your quarterback because he's not it, at least not right now.
All right, guys, real quick, just want to also remember, if you like the content I'm putting out and you want to keep continuing to watch and view The Jar, Be sure to smash that subscribe button, and also in the comments put things that you think I should talk about, suggestions that'll help with the facts or opinions that I'm putting out, and then maybe we can go over those. Just want to invest in you guys just like you guys are investing in me, and we can go in there. Again, thank you guys for continuing to view the jar, and I'll continue to bring you guys great content, and we'll go from there.
And the final game of the week. We expected this game to be a blowout. At least I did. We had the Washington Commanders against the Cincinnati Bengals. We thought T. Higgins is back, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. They're going to feast on that rookie quarterback who hasn't had any touchdowns, mostly rushing. And we thought Joe Burrow was going to come back into form and Jamar was going to. And for the most part, at the beginning of the game, you thought so. Joe Burrow hit Jamar Chase easily on a 50-yard bomb for a touchdown. And we're like, oh, it's going to be a rout. And boy, were we wrong. Jayden McDaniels, Heisman Trophy winner, Jayden McDaniels. This was his coming out party. He looked amazing yesterday. He looked not like a rookie, but a veteran. From what I understand, he's played 55 college football games. So when all you guys talk about how people need to leave early if they can, and a lot of times some guys need to maybe stay a little longer or get a little more experience, and it can help them long term. And this might be the case for him. Yeah, college is not the pros. I've always said that because they're not playing the best talent. They're playing who's in front of them. But yesterday, he played who's in front of him. Now, if you want to argue the Bengals aren't one of the best teams, which honestly, I didn't think they were going to be anyway, then you got me. But nobody expected him to play like this. At least I didn't. The guy literally, here's the funny thing. Jayden McDaniels resembled RG3, ironically on the same team. He threw the ball with accuracy. He ran. He was nimble. He made all the right plays at all the right times against the Cincinnati Bengals. Hendricks couldn't even get a sack. He got one sack in that game, and it was at the end. He was feeling good. And you know what Jayden McDaniels said? I don't care. I'm going to still score a touchdown so you guys can't come back and win. And that's what he did. When the Bengals had a chance to win that game, because they thought they were going to stop them and maybe prevent them from scoring a touchdown, just kicking a field goal. Nah, that's not what happened. You put the ball in that rookie's hand, and you said, take us to the promised land, and that's what he did. Jayden McDaniels hit Terry McLaurin on a bomb similar to what Joe Burrow did with Jamar Chase in the first quarter. Basically, Terry McLaurin has told the rook to trust me, throw it up there, and I got it. And that's pretty much what he did. Terry McLaurin went for 100 yards, one touchdown, and that last touchdown being the best one of the day because, again, the kid had 254 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He ran a touchdown in, and Austin Eckler actually he was great as well, and he went out the game. But then you have Brian Robinson Jr. who came in also because he's a running back and he scored. So they were clicking on all cylinders the whole day. And you just look and saw Cincinnati really trying to figure out what do we do against this rookie, because he doesn't look like a rookie when they probably overlooked that game because he hadn't played well up until that point. Well, he did now. And the league has recognized what he did. I don't care if it's one game, he deserves it. Jayden McDaniels. You even had, I'm pretty sure, a lot of Bears fans looking like, did we get the right guy? Now, again, don't get it twisted. Caleb still looks good. I don't want to blame it on him, and I'm not trying to change the subject, but coaching makes a difference. And who's to say how Jayden would have looked in his Week 3 game if he was on the Bears and Caleb switched him, he was on the Washington Commanders? You don't know. So I don't want to do that, and I don't like when teams or fans do that. The fact of the matter is, give Jayden McDaniels his day. He looked amazing. Again, he resembled RG3. Let's just hope he stays healthy and go from there. Now that I'm done giving praise to the Washington Commanders and how good Jayden McDaniels looked, Cincinnati Bengals, we have a problem. You guys stink. You guys are terrible. And the real question is, has your window closed? Joe Burrow has had 2 devastating injuries that has put him out for seasons. For freshman season, which was his rookie year, and last year. The year before that, they were pretty much in the AFC Championship game in the Super Bowl. That's when he was healthy. But he's been hurt. And by him being hurt, he has affected things with the team. At the time when he was healthy, he had Joe Mixon. He had T. Higgins. He had Jamar Chase. He had Tyler Boyd. The offense was amazing. But he's been hurt. And because he's been hurt, he's allowed so much things to happen and people to leave. Now you don't have that third receiver that can sometimes be a number 2 in Tyler Boyd anymore. You had to let Joe Mixon go out the window or out the door because you couldn't pay him. And T. Higgins doesn't want to be there because he isn't getting paid. And Jamar Chase wants his contract now, and I think he's not even due right now, but he wants to get paid. And now he's saying he may not even come back. So do I think their window is closed? Yes. Now, everybody knows the Bengals start off slow. Every year they start off slow, and then they start getting better. But this is different. When they started off slow, they had those weapons. Regardless, at all costs, they still had those guys. But they don't anymore. You don't know how T. Higgins is feeling. Yeah, he played. You didn't know he was out there. Now, it's his first game back. He may get better because he looks like he could be a number 1 at times as well. Jamar Chase looked good. But their defense didn't look good. And for as many points as they put up, that was yesterday. They lost to the New England Patriots the first game. They don't look good, is what I'm saying. And they're losing to teams that they shouldn't be losing to because I think the Bengals are turning into the Bengals of old. They did the same thing with Andy Dalton. Remember, they went to the playoffs, then they went back to normal. They did the same thing with Carson Palmer. Now, there was bogus what Pittsburgh Steelers did when they rolled over on Carson's leg. I always say there was a Bush League bullcrap play that they did, and they're good for doing that, trying to hurt players, because let's not forget what Minka Fitzpatrick did it to Nick Chubb. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are good for trying to hurt somebody and put them out. That's why I'm not a fan, because I think as good as they are, they play dirty. I don't care. That's how I feel. But stay on topic with the Bengals. The Bengals are returning back to who they were. Okay team that's not going to do anything. And unfortunately, it might be Joe Burrow's fault. Now, you can't blame him for getting hurt, but you have to blame him because the seasons that they needed you to be healthy, you weren't. Even now this year, someone thought something was wrong, or they thought something was wrong with his wrist because they said he was having issues picking up a water bottle, which he could have been playing. But when you go through injuries, people look at every single thing you do. And they looked at every single thing he did. And when he went to pick up that water bottle, it looked funny, so it was on the news. Now, that's gone away, but that has nothing to do with the season. I'm going to say one more time. This is week 3. They start off slow. But I don't believe that the Bengals will be able to make the comeback that they have done in the past years, because I don't think they have the same goals in mind, meaning Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, because I think they want to get paid. They don't have that bulldog running back that they had and Joe Mixon. They got Zach Moss, for Christ's sake. So I don't believe that the Bengals will come back from this. I believe this year is going to be a year where you see a lot of teams go backwards that we are used to being good, and that's what makes the NFL great. You predict things that should happen, and it doesn't happen. You got Dallas looking bad. You got Baltimore getting their first win. You got the New Orleans Saints looking good, yet lose one game. You got the Minnesota freaking Vikings, 3-0. And you got players like Josh Allen looking better without his primary weapon, Stephon Diggs, and Gabe Davis, by the way. You have up-and-coming teams, Houston Texans, that don't look as good, and we predicted them to be almost a Super Bowl favorite next to the Chiefs. So you got a lot. Oh, San Francisco with their injuries. You got a lot of different things going on the first 3 weeks of the NFL. And it makes it good because nobody likes things being predicted all the time. Nobody does. It gets boring. So we'll be keeping an eye out on the season. I'll be keeping an eye out on the season and giving you guys all the best information, factual information, opinionated information. And that'll conclude my week 3 of the NFL, of what happened, what you guys seen, what I seen, what we loved. Until then, thank you guys for watching The Jar. I'll see you soon.